Hello and welcome to Health Talk. I'm Dr. Manny. Many of the nation's sick and elderly depend on professional caretakers, but in many cases they are shockingly underpaid for their life-saving work. Care is a documentary shedding light on this growing problem. Here to discuss is the director, Deirdre Fishel, and Vilma Rosen, a caretaker whose story is featured in the film. Thank you so much for being here. Interesting topic, and I think very relevant. You know, we have a lot of people that need caretakers, and it's a confusing, sort of a confusing profession. So tell me about the film first.
Well, the film takes a really kind of a deep look at what does this care look like when you're dealing with people who have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and it also looks at the lives of workers and at the lives of families who are really struggling to pay for the care.
And Vilma, you're a caretaker. What are what's the job description? What are the responsibilities? What's the scope of practice of a caretaker?
Well, it's everything. It's householding management, it's home health aide, it's a nurse, it's running errands, it's taxi driver, it's hold the stuff together, it's be the family, it's be everything in the life of the person you are caring for.
The one thing that the documentary points out, aside from all the great work that they do, is the problem of caretakers in America. And what is that problem?
Well, the problem is that these workers are not being paid enough, they're not being trained enough, and you know, what's happening that's really sad is that some people like Vilma and other workers who are in the film who have a calling, who love this work, who find it deeply meaningful. Those are people we want to be taking care of our parents, but they're not being paid enough to stay in the profession. And I think that's going to be a crisis because we need more and more people to do this, and there's going to be a huge care gap. So
a lot of these agencies today, there is a deficit in qualified workers.
There's a deficit now, and what's happening is that you can't just keep doing this work and giving your heart and soul like Vilma did for years to this woman Dee, whose sole family lived 3,000 miles away in California. That meant that Vilma and the other workers were taking full responsibility, 24/7 care of this woman's life. And you know, and yet, at the end of the day, if you can't feed your own family, how are you going to stay in this profession?
You brought something up, but I want Vilma to answer. You know, you talked about training. Do you think that the job requires some degree of professional training, being so that, you know, there's so many things, so many modern things nowadays when it comes to healthcare that maybe somebody who was not exposed to them going into that kind of job may not be suitable for it? Do you think that there should be more training for caretakers?
Of course,
certifications, you know, continuing education programs?
Of course, definitely we need more education. In my case, always I try to educate more myself or help the people. That's I still doing.
But in other words, a lot of the education that you have received, basically you decided, hey, I want to get more informed and more educated. It's not that the system is pushing you right now to give you more credentials, right? So that's a problem.
Yeah, and somehow the system is not help at all. The system just try to put us in the way just to get a simple certification for being home health aide, because that's the state regulation.
Right.
But it's not working.
So the regulations are a little loosey-goosey. They're being underpaid, basically used as laborers force rather than real health givers, which is exactly what they are. And that has to change, and that's why you have the documentary, and that's why I love that documentary. I think everybody should watch it too. So what are the solutions?
I think the number one solution is that we need to be talking about this. This is an invisible, lurking crisis in this country, and yet, you know, none of our candidates are talking about it, and yet everybody else is talking about it. So we need to say that this is not just a private matter, this is a public matter. So I think that that's number one. And the other thing is a reallocation of resources. You know, my father died last week, but he was in the hospital, and they would have done anything for him in terms of intubation or keeping him on huge machines machinery, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
But they would not pay for him to have a home caregiver.
Right.
And so the question is, if we look at cost benefit, obviously we have to look at costs
Right.
too, but there could be a reallocation that says that people who are well trained could keep people out of the hospital.
I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Where's the documentary?
Well, the film is going to be at Doc NYC on November 13th here in New York City at the SVA Theater. And we'd love for people to join our website, caredocumentary.com, where you'll see all of the screenings that are coming up. And the film will be on PBS on America Reframed in the spring. So we hope you join us in saying that this is an important national conversation.
It is. We want to win this war, Wilma, right? Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And telling your story is very wonderful. And thank you for
Thank
making
you.
the
Thank you.
documentary and being here and shedding light into something that is going to affect us all, no matter where we live in the U.S. And if you have any health questions, tweet me on Dr. Manny on Fox. Until next time, I'm Dr. Manny.